I deal with people who don't have $1 million of net worth, who are not, necessarily super operators. They're actually struggling. They don't have capital that they can immediately inject into marketing. They don't have the desire to do the guerrilla marketing. I have to work with a hot dog stand and make them into a McDonald's without the capital.
How to bring more clients into your business, keep them longer whilst improving your profitability is a subject we have discussed in many of our interviews. But my guest today has turned this art into a science. In this episode, we discuss a number of tried and tested methods to grow your business, including how to make money from team training and why most gym owners get their pricing wrong, why workout-based group training concepts are affecting your retention, and what is the secret formula to make virtual training work. And it's not streaming classes. With a client base of over 2,000 thriving businesses, I'm very impressed with this guy's results. So please check out this week's podcast with the founder and CEO of GymLaunch, Mr. Alex Hormozi. So Alex, thank you so much for inviting me into your house today, and what a beautiful house it is.
Thank you for inviting me on your podcast. Beautiful podcast as well.
One of the things I was going to ask you is I actually first came across you on your ads, your Facebook ads, and I think there's two things that stuck into my mind and Kevin's is the tash and the biceps. Yeah. And I had to ask you, I've not got big guns, but where do you buy your shirts from to fit those arms in?
Well, so the key is to get youth extra large, right? Because if you get youth XL, then everything looks bigger, because it's really just a shirt for a child. No, I'm kidding. I get our stuff at Lululemon is where I get the majority of my gear.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. So what's your you're obviously in great shape. Are you your background bodybuilding or anything like that?
I was a powerlifter.
Right.
Yeah, so I was a powerlifter. I competed for 5 years, and then one day I realized that no one cared how strong I was, and so I remember I was pulling my leg out of the car because my hips were in so much pain from the volume I was doing that I was like, wait, I'm like, at the time I think I was 25 or 26, and I was like, what am I doing? And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just switch how I train. So I started training with more volume, and kind of switching more to just more bodybuilding style. I've never competed in bodybuilding. I don't have the desire to get stage lean, but I just have done that for probably 6 more years now, and that works for me. Yeah. And so you just saw the home setup. I just kind of like to do my thing and train every day and train hard and do more.
For those of you that are on audio, and we'll see if we can get some video of this, but I've never seen a home gym like this. It's got so much equipment in it. It's very impressive. Are you a bit of a collector of equipment?
Yeah, I think everybody's got I'm actually not like a car guy or anything like that. The only thing I think I really splurge on or will find myself late at night scrolling is new equipment. And so whatever our next home is, it'll probably be twice that size. I just love having all the pieces, just because for, when you're training, it's just nice to have the variety. And so I like having the variety.
Yeah. So what got you into the gym business? Because I guess there's the sort of 1%ers that do extremely well, and then the rest of the people in the business sort of, struggle to get going. And I know you've had your own gyms. Why did you sort of set this up as a career?
I was a management consultant for 2 years after I graduated college, and I did pretty well in that. That was space, cyber, and intelligence. We focused on strategic initiatives for the military for cyber and space, and that was a totally different life. And I knew that I didn't enjoy that, and so I just made the total 180 decision that I was like, life's short. I'm going to do something that I love, even if I don't make any money. I'll just at least be doing something that I love every day. And then I think I told you the short story, but I moved across the country. I talked to some gym owners. They were willing to help me out in the very beginning to just kind of learn the ropes. I knew nothing, but I think that ended up being an advantage because I didn't have any preconceived notions about how I was supposed to do it. And so with that, I think we did things a little bit differently. And by doing that, we're able to have some success and continue to grow from there. I used the consultative method that I learned as a management consultant to kind of acquire and iterate on information. So the whole consultative method is typically you find experts, you ask them what they're doing, what their opinions on how things should work are, and then you ask those experts for 5 people that they think are smart. Then you talk to those 5 people, you ask for them, and then overall, over time, you end up getting basically the same people. And once you have that, you kind of have the mind map of all the information that exists from the people who've already sifted through the vast majority of it. So they're giving you kind of the top 1% of the information. And then from there, we would categorize the information into buckets and then basically consolidate what we think the crystallized actions or strategy should be. And so that was kind of the consultative method that we'd use for like military strategy. But it was pretty much the same thing that I applied to running the gym. And so every weekend, I didn't know anybody in California, which is where I moved to, which was an advantage to a certain degree because I had no friends, I had no girlfriend, I had no nothing. And so every weekend I would drive up or I'd have long phone calls with gym owners, and I would just take pages and pages and pages of notes, and I would try and implement some of the things, and some of them worked and some of them didn't. But piece by piece, things ended up working. And so fundamentally, I think most gyms struggle from, one, they don't know how to acquire customers profitably. Two, if they finally do end up filling their gym, the gym isn't profitable, so their model's broken. And then three, if they do have a customer that finally does come, they don't know how to keep them. And so kind of those are the three big problems that most fitness facilities, especially independent operators, struggle from. And so it was kind of solving each of those three pieces. And once you do, then you have a way to acquire customers profitably, to put them in a model that is profitable, and then a way to extend the lifetime value with multiple services and revenue streams and whatnot, so that overall the facility can continue to grow.
Mm. And did you find that those problems were the same across, whether it's an independent gym owner with one location up to people that have got, sort of big franchises that we were talking about off camera? Are they sort of universal problems that you found?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, it's acquisition, the model itself, and then the retention.
Right.
That's it. And then, what you sprinkle on top of that is just what training and culture needs to be in place, because it's a service-based business. At least the gyms that I work with currently are all service-based businesses, so they're not facility license type businesses. So the $10 a month massive facility, that's a different model than what we talk about. So like if I were to work with a Crunch, for example, I would be working specifically about how they're going to do their group training and their boutique services side, because that's the side where I think that's where I work. Not to say there's anything wrong with that side. It's just that's what we kind of specialize in.
Mm. And why do you think that is such a common issue? Like, we go to a lot of the seminars and you hear the webinars, and it just seems for years, I've been in the business for about 20 years, and it seems for years we always talk about the same things. Why do you think that nobody's really been able to successfully figure that out and scale that?
I think it's because it requires skill. And so that's the hardest thing is to in the fitness business, most people who are coming in as employees are typically really low skilled employees. And so you have to take someone who's not being paid very well, because, if I run a yogurt shop, I'm sure I could have, you have to figure out a job that somebody who's going to be paid at that level, which is what is required by the business model. What can someone who's paid at that level do well? And the difference between a yogurt shop and a gym is that at the yogurt shop, I'm getting my value from the yogurt and the machine. Whereas at the fitness studio, you're getting the value from this $15 an hour employee. And so ultimately we're selling people at a discount. And that's where we're making our margin, is on selling the services that we've provided. And so the level of culture and management that it takes to run a good facility, to be very candid with you, the people who are really phenomenal operators, if you can operate 10 facilities at once as an owner operator or operator overall, usually if you were to take that same level of skill set and apply it to a different opportunity vehicle, you'll probably make more money. And so it's kind of one of those things where I feel like fitness is just like the breeding ground for acquiring the skills of business. But typically once you achieve a certain level of mastery, there are superior vehicles for making money if you had the same level of skill set.
Right. And when you say superior vehicles, do you mean like other industries outside?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, we're going into like the equipment side, or it's just service on its own is incredibly difficult, especially in what most would consider like a commoditized marketplace. And so what we work with, with facilities to try to decommoditize them from their competitors so that they can charge a premium, because pricing is, I could go into all the issues, but pricing, especially for services, is typically way off. Most people will price it pretty much at break even. Because they think, oh, well, I'll open up this new class time because one person said that they were going to be able to do it. So it's at least another $100 a month. So it'll make sense, but it doesn't actually work that way. And so I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding, especially on independent operators, because they're usually more passion driven. And so just like I was when I started, I just want to start a gym, but I also had my own insecurities and ambitions. So I wanted to do it well. And I think a lot of people are really content still being on the floor, and I didn't have that desire. I knew when I started my first gym I wanted to have multiple, and so I kind of always had that end in mind of like figuring out what the right model was going to be.
Do you think that that the pricing is part of the issue, where the sort of the fitness product, is being sold as a commodity, which means that you're not able to pay for good quality people to work in there, whether it's in marketing or in fitness, and that is part of the crux of the issue.
Totally. We call it the virtuous or vicious cycle of price. And so you lower your price, and then the thing is the incremental decreases in price with a fixed cost have massive impacts on the bottom line. So the average independently operated gym runs on 12.5% margins. And my source on that is I have a CPA firm that only does gyms, and so they know what people actually make. And so 12.5% margins is what they're making. So that means if you're making $300,000 a year, guys are making 35, 40,000. That's not a lot, right? And so from there, if you think about that, if you reverse that to their membership, right? Depending on where you look, like Zenplanter, Wodify, they came out with some reports about what the average cost per member was. And so it was about $90 a month for a group training member. And so most of the boot camps are running like $99 a month for the membership, which means they're making 10% on that membership. And so that's where the pricing is really important, because if they go from even 100 to 110, they double their profit, right? And so those small tweaks in pricing can make massive differences in the business model. For example, we get all of our independent operators to switch from monthly billing to every 4 weeks or every 2-week billing. And the reason for that is if you do 28-day cycles, you get 13 28-day cycles in a year compared to 12. Now that doesn't seem like much, but it's 8% more per year. But if you're running on 12.5% margins, you just took it from 12 to 20. And so all of a sudden you almost double the profit simply by changing the way you bill. And you're not going to get any pushback from a prospect on saying, hey, we just bill every 28 weeks instead of billing monthly. No one's going to balk at that. And so there's a lot of small things that you can do to incrementally improve the profitability of the business. That's just on the pricing side, but there's the same thing can be done on how you're picking the exercise selection so that you can maximize the square footage of the facility, so that you can do, instead of having 10 people in a CrossFit. I mean, I remember there was this CrossFit that we flew out to. This is back when I was doing turnarounds in person rather than kind of the consulting that we do now. But we'd fly out, and this guy, I remember it was like yesterday, they maxed out at I think 13 people, and this place was 3,000 square feet, 13 people, and it was a CrossFit facility. And I was like, what do you mean you can only run 13? But like, this doesn't, look at the math. Like you will at full capacity, you're under profitability, right? Like, and he was living on his personal training. So I was like, you realize your entire business is a nonprofit, and then you're just making money on your personal training hours. You might as well just be a personal trainer and forget about this stuff. And so finally, after digging, literally this was a 4-hour conversation, it came down to the fact that they do double unders, which is jump ropes, right? And so when they do double unders, it takes up this enormous amount of space. And so if for some reason the class does choose to do that, then they had to limit it at 13. And because they didn't know what the workouts were going to be, they always had to prepare for the lowest common denominator of space. And so I remember I grabbed the jump rope and I was like, this is strangling your business. This $10 jump rope is the reason that you can't go from 13 to 25 people in your sessions, is because you're choosing to have jump ropes. He's like, what do we do? And I was like, stop having them. I was like, because 90% of your clients are never going to compete, nor do they care. And this wasn't like a competitor facility. So these were, soccer moms just trying to not gain weight during Thanksgiving. And so it's understanding the customer avatar, which is most people just want to look okay. They don't actually care about competing. They don't care about their macros. They don't even care about the programming. They just want to work out and feel good about themselves. And so there's a lot of ways you can, accomplish that. Same degree with the Olympic lifts. We get most of our facilities to not do the Olympic lifts for their large group. You can save those for semi-private and small group. But A, you have injury risk, but B, there's just a huge space demand. And also the coach to client ratio has to massively decrease, so your profitability for the session goes down. But the objective of that, which is how most people are using it, is for conditioning. But if the objective is conditioning, then there's a million ways you can condition someone that doesn't require 10 by 10 square foot around them for the bounce radius on a bar. And so it's small things. So that's just exercise selection. So one was pricing, one's exercise selection. How you're structuring the sessions. Are you doing hour-long sessions? Are you doing 45-minute sessions? Are you putting a 15-minute buffer in between? All these little things can massively increase the efficiency of the facility, so that ideally we can operate for as few hours of the day, so we can decrease the payroll on the actual fulfillment side. And then again, you can structure it from, a lot of places do unlimited. And I have a somewhat controversial view about it. I think that it's better, in my opinion, to structure things as sessions that are scheduled. Right? I think people take them more seriously. I think they're more likely to attend, and they're also valued higher. So it's not workout sessions, right?
So you're against unlimited, then, are you?
I would say limited, if done properly, is done by an advanced business owner who actually knows all the metrics of the business, which 99% of them do not. And so most of them, if we can get them to 3 times a week, then just by doing that, we double the capacity of the facility again, right? And people will actually pay the same amount for 3 times a week as they will for unlimited. sometimes more, which actually doubles again how much you're making per you know what I'm saying? Like these little things when stacked together at the end of the year, for us, the average gym that's worked with us for a year adds $239,000 to their top line revenue. They take their take home from $29.40 a month to $89.50 take home in profit. That's per month that they're able to take as a result of what we do. They take their average price from $129 a month. That's what our incoming surveys say. That's the average that we get to $167 a month. And again, that $37 when you're looking, like that's double, sometimes triple the profit that they were making before. And so it's all these tiny things that we add in supplement sales, so they have retail revenue that starts coming in that doesn't take any operational drag. It's just simply there and just provides $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, which for many of them just covers their rent. And so it's these small things that add up over time, and a lot of them just don't do all of them. And so I think the difficulty in the fitness industry is that you have a lot of people who have a lot of passion, who also have really poor views around money. They sell from their own wallet. They're like, well, no one would pay for that. And that's because they already understand what they're trying to sell. Like if I go to a mechanic shop and two mechanics are talking like, who would pay for that? All you got to do is turn this and turn that knob. I'm like, I don't know. And so as long as you're not being unethical and you're just providing value, a lot of times people will value things more than you think.
What do you say? Because how many clients do you have currently?
So we've worked with over 3,500 facilities. At any given time, we probably have active, probably 700 right now.
Right.
So, I mean, there's definitely a clear path that we have for our gyms to get to, 7 figures. The average gym on the last survey we had is doing $594,000 in revenue that we work with. So that's what they're doing using our systems. And some of them, once they've implemented the systems, graduate, and that's fine. You know what I mean? That's the way the work. I'd love to keep everyone forever, but like that's just the reality, and that's okay. Our goal, it was a turnaround business. So once the systems are implemented, the only thing. So if you think about a business in terms of inputs and assets would be the actual business structure, the selling processes, the bundles, the packages, the price points, the meal plans, all the things that are one-time assets, right? And then after that, the only inputs are going to be demand generation and sales, right? Like that's it. Like that's it. And so the only things that have to be done on a continuous basis is whatever the acquisition method is. So whether that's organic with outreach and cold messaging, or cold emailing, or it's demand gen with Facebook ads and Instagram ads and all that stuff. Like that's the input. But the machine, once the machine's built, you don't need to rebuild it. You just need to add more demand, and that's it.
Have you found that? And I'm probably going to have to reference pre-COVID because it's a bit of a crazy time. But prior to that, did you find that there was a certain type of gym model that just worked better than others? And when I say that, I mean probably like a pure Group X sort of boutique studio, or a traditional gym with Group X or Group X PT. Was any of those that you found were nicer, better to work with from a profit perspective? Yes,
the ones with the best operators. Just being really real, that 100% is what it is. We have our model, so obviously we espouse that model, and we specifically work with group training facilities. Group training, semi-private, independently operated facility. Like that is our bread and butter, who specialize in transformation, weight loss, before and after picture, that kind of style. I don't work as much with what I would consider workout-based facilities. So like with a unique mechanism like spin, bar, yoga, like not that the model doesn't work for them. It's just that we tend to not, I tend to rub those owners the wrong way.
Why is that?
Because I think that I want to sell around the result, because weight loss will never go out of fashion, but bar might. No offense to any bar owners or Les Mills or whatever, whatever the thing is. Usually, and not to knock franchisors, but a lot of times people have their, 10 years ago, they were the brand new thing, and they exploded in growth. They use those metrics as their base metrics to sell their concept. They were probably also really good promoters and good operators. And then they sell the mousetrap that was based on something that was new. And then the thing is that the novelty declines over time. And then all of a sudden it's not that new. And the people who are taking over are not that good operators. They're not promotional oriented. And so this kind of stacks all the chips against those people. Whereas in my opinion, weight loss and transformation will never go out of style. And so I think it's a more timeless model to focus on what people value the most. Like a woman will pay $5,000 to get plastic surgery to look a certain way, because beauty and weight loss will never go out of style. But they are not paying $5,000 for yoga. They're not paying $5,000 for bar. But we can sell a $5,000, 28-week program for 1-on-4 semi-private all day long, and that's incredibly profitable. And so that's kind of why I prefer the transformation-based studios, because I think that there's way more ability to get higher ticket. There's ability to put retail products in that, like yoga. You don't see a lot of them selling like big supplement bundles. You know what I mean? But those are huge profit centers for a business. And so I lean more towards that type of business simply because there's more opportunities to make money. A lot of the workout only facilities are struggling a lot because they're commoditized price wise from every other one that does the exact same workout. Whereas at least with transformation, you have a little bit more wiggle of your unique method and all that kind of stuff. But if it's like, this is what we do, then it's very difficult to
differentiate.
Yeah, exactly, to decommoditize yourself. And so there's all these chips that are stacked against. And so usually if I say that, someone who's, let's say, a yoga person would be like, that can't be true. And it's like, I mean, I don't really have an opinion. I don't want to say it's not an opinion. I guess it is an opinion, but I think it's a pretty data-backed opinion.
You talk about good operators that are key to success. What makes a good operator then?
Good interpersonal understanding, good emotional intelligence, being able to stay organized and run a team. A lot of business owners have massive emotional issues. A lot of them are not organized at all. A lot of them don't even hold weekly meetings. They don't hold one-on-ones with their team. They don't give them improvement plans. They have no goals set week to week. The employees have no transparency into how the business is doing. They don't even know what key metrics they're looking for. They're really just operating blind. And so a good operator should know what the key metrics of the business, what are the things that they're going to drive, what are each of the roles doing on a regular basis, what the utilization level of the employees are. And so if they have all those things, then they can have a really good grasp on the cost of the business and what are the handful of key drivers for growth that they need to be focused on, and then direct the team towards. But most operators don't do any of that. So, yeah.
Is there a thing that you out of all the thousands of people that businesses you've dealt with, is there one thing out of all of them that trips people up more often than anything else?
The two biggest things that I'll say biggest mistakes that I see are around pricing and I don't know if the other one's it's sales ability.
Right.
So if someone is priced properly and can sell, they'll probably make money in the fitness industry. Like if they can just do those two things, they'll do it. One of the hardest things is if you have an owner operator who's not very sales oriented, it becomes really challenging because they're also usually aren't very good at recruiting salespeople because they're not like them, right? And so they can't find the right people. And then if they do, they can't train them. And if someone's not doing a good job, they don't know how to correct them because they can't sell either. And so it's kind of like, it's this base thing, especially in fitness, where in my opinion, a lot of the chips are stacked against you in a fitness sale because you're telling someone they have to change everything about their lives. They can't eat the food they love. They have to wake up super early. They have to be sore. And they may, in 12 months, look better than they do now. But they still probably won't be at their goal, right? So like you have everything stacked against you. And then the only thing you have is just the conviction that they want to work with you to achieve that goal, right? And so it takes sales ability. It takes interpersonal ability. And typically when you have someone who's an absolute savage closer in that space, if they applied that skill set to selling real estate or, you know what I mean? Like once they develop that skill set, usually that skill set can be taken into a different opportunity. But that's why I think it's a great breeding ground for entrepreneurs, because a lot of entrepreneurs themselves wanted to take control of the first thing they could, which is themselves. And so they could take control of their food and their body, and then they want to do what all entrepreneurs do and share that with the world. And so a lot of newer entrepreneurs start in fitness because that's why MLMs for supplements is a great, huge breeding ground for people who are starting their kind of careers in entrepreneurship. Because it starts with fitness for many people. It's the first discipline that they're able to learn is how to control their own body.
What do you think about a lot of the models where they don't have any sales whatsoever? I know some of the studios, it's very much like you come in or it's done online. Are you of the opinion that you need some sort of like real human being in that sales process, or can you automate it?
I think you can automate it, but I think the guys who have been able to automate it are world-class marketers. They're phenomenal marketers. You look at, like Rumble Boxing or, Barry's Bootcamp. They've built just amazing brands that they've built allure around the brands. They get celebrities to come. Like they've done so much good PR work. Like that's the type of thing that most independent operators wouldn't even dream of or think about. And so they're able to generate so much buzz that, this is just my 2 cents, is that they develop so much demand and so much word of mouth and so much awareness that they have this huge of a funnel of impressions that they can have a less efficient conversion process which would be like online sales or whatever. But even with a less efficient conversion process, they're still able to make a very profitable facility because of the level of awareness that exists for their brand. You know, SoulCycle is another example. But they also have a phenomenal product. And many brands have tried to copy, what they did. But again, they were first to market. And so, but I would say those guys are far more the exception. If you look at the total number of facilities that exist out there, you look at the 100 or so SoulCycles, and it might be 200 now, I don't know. But and then you look at the Barriers Bootcamp, which they don't have a ton. You look at that compared to the total number of fitness facilities, you're talking about a fraction of a fraction, and how many others have tried to mimic them and then just fail miserably after spending millions in PR, and then nothing happens. So I think I typically will try and go towards the optimal conversion mechanism, which I do think for many is going to be a phone sale or an in-person sale, with a fitness professional that can sell to goal, which is what I usually prefer to do with our gyms. Is we try and get them to because when you sell to a goal, then people understand what they're trying to buy, right? Whereas trying to explain the unique mechanisms of how our workout is special and different, I think also brings a lot of workout hoppers who will say, I'm going to try this for a few months, and then the lifetime value massively plummets. We try not to sell the workout and actually just sell the goal and say, don't worry about how we're going to get there. Like, you're going to sweat, you're going to probably be sore, and it's going to be okay.
It's interesting, yeah.
So we just have a different approach.
So do you think then that those sort of workout-based concepts, of which there's probably a lot springing up at the moment, is difficult to sell or to keep people coming back in the long term then? Yeah.
Totally.
Right.
I mean, the thing that's going to keep people in the very long, so there's five things that you have to do to retain members, right? One is if someone is supposed to show up and hasn't showed up, they need to call the next day multiple times to get them back in the facility. You can actually track user metrics and watch someone go, 3 times a week, 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a week, cancel. You can just watch it, right? But if you have the right, retention systems in place, it can be 3, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. So you actually can save them. And what's nice about that is it's good for the business, but it's also good for the person. Because most people, I've never really encountered anyone who cancels a gym membership that they're using. Don't get me wrong, people do it. But like most people, if they actually used the entirety of their gym membership, would happily pay it. And so so the goal of all retention systems is consumption, is how can we get them to consume the service, right? And so, checking in on them to make sure that they attend if they don't attend, checking in twice a month just as a human being to develop the relationship, making sure that you have exit interviews so that you can save someone or potentially spot issues that you didn't know. Maybe one of your trainers was drunk or God knows, I've heard everything, right? Trainers sleeping with one of the, whatever, right? We've all dealt with that kind of stuff. So there's just 3 of the 5 retention tactics. We do handwritten cards. You have events. Those are 2 of the other ones that you can use. That typically what they'll do is it's much easier to quit a gym than it is to quit a relationship or a community. And so the goal is to have a choreographed process of getting the client to go from a prospect or new client to part of the community. And so, we look at 4 milestones throughout that process. In the beginning, we need activation, which is, I know Orange Theory presented, I think at, I can't remember what conference it was, but, if someone worked out 5 times in the first 30 days, they were typically going to stay much longer. We have activation metrics for GymLaunch. Most businesses do. A lot of gyms don't look for activation. They just look at their churn, which is a lagging metric, which can be difficult because even if you start implementing some of these retention systems, you won't see it for typically 12 weeks. Especially if you start reaching out to all your customers on a regular basis, because most gyms are like, don't talk to them, let's just hope they don't cancel. But usually when you start getting proactive with it, you'll see a big spike in churn, which will usually mean you'll get that month and the next month churn all at once. But then, I've seen this happen so many times. A gym will be at, let's say, 8% month-over-month churn. They'll start the communication cycles that we have them do for retention. They'll go from 8 to 12% churn, and they're like, oh my God, what's happening? But then it'll go from 12 to 6, and then 6 to 3. But that takes, it takes 12 weeks, 16 weeks for that to happen. And so the activation points that we try and catch earlier on is making sure that they attend those first sessions. That's what making sure that if they attend, you call them the next day. It pushes activation, right? Checking in every 2 weeks pushes activation, because at least in the first month, they've already had 3 personalized reach outs, 1 in the beginning and then 2 more, plus anything that they miss. So you're really covering those people in the beginning. But that's just like part of it. The other half is how we're selling them up front. I haven't been the biggest proponent of trials in general. There are some contexts where it works, but I prefer to sell defined and front-end programs. So like 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 28-day, that type of program at a much higher price point. And we do that, one, because it liquidates the cost of acquisition. That's the whole like getting your customers profitably. But second, because if you have a more invested customer, they're more invested. And so the conversion rate on a higher ticket front end, like $300 to $1,000 front end ticket, will typically be 50 to 75% depending on the skill of the operator and the goodness of the facility, for lack of a better term, compared to a trial, which the industry average is 35%. And so you're converting twice as many of them on the back end, which consumes less resources on the front. And you're also getting paid, compared to a low barrier offer front end of like $21 for 21 days or, free month or whatever, you're able to make significantly more on those clients. I mean, a lot of times 20, 30 times more. And so you can actually be profitable in the acquisition. So you're making money getting new customers rather than spending money and then hoping to recoup the cost over time.
Have you seen any of the sort of studios, for example, doing this well? Like you mentioned Orange Theory. Have you, is that a system that you think they've got right? Or
I think they're one of the few really, really well-run franchises. I think that they're, this is just me speaking candidly. I think churn around workout-based facilities is always going to be an issue. From what I understand, their churn is continuing to go up right now. This is right before COVID. I know COVID hit them relatively hard from my understanding. But I think they do a really good job of, if I'm being really honest, I think they're just so good at business that they have such a good way of signing up customers. They get the right franchisees in. They make sure that the requirements to be a franchisee are higher for them than virtually any other brand. They have high liquidity. They spend more on the openings than anyone else does. And because of that, the gyms that they open are already profitable and are already really well-run businesses. They won't even allow you to open if you're not at a certain level. And so the launch is such an important part of the business that like 95% of the time is the most overlooked part. But starting out strong is huge. And they've really perfected that model. And then beyond that, they have such a strong culture of execution just within the entire brand that they make sure that every single person is kind of mayor of the town. So all the small businesses know you're there. They've got flyers. They do all the guerrilla marketing stuff on top of all of the digital marketing and social media stuff. So
the brand, I guess, which they bring now,
right? And they're also really good at the branding. So I mean, they've really put together a really good machine. And I don't want to say it's I think the workout they have is very good, but they do a lot of variety, and if you'll notice around how they sell it is how the workouts are not the same, and so it's really not about they're not saying we're just going to use bar or we're just going to use rowers or we're just going to XYZ, and so as much they have a workout based facility, but it is based on the variety, so it makes it a little bit different. Whereas if you just have one modality, it can get stale. But still, I think they do have some churn things but they're so good at bringing them in. That if you were to take, in my opinion, that level of execution, that level of operator, and then apply it to, let's say, like our model with transformation, you would probably see equal success or higher. I deal with people who don't have $1 million of net worth, who are not, necessarily super operators. They're actually struggling. They don't have capital that they can immediately inject into marketing. They don't have the desire to do the guerrilla marketing. And so I have to work with a hot dog stand and make them into a McDonald's without the capital. And so that's kind of why like our solutions are based on who we're dealing with. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if I had to start from scratch, I'd probably do things differently than what I typically will have to do to kind of turn a facility around. So
I know you're quite big into metrics, and I guess a lot of the people I speak to is particularly when it comes to marketing, a lot of it's unmeasured and flyers and print and a bunch of other stuff. It seems as though you've got a very sort of measurable, predictable system. If someone's not got a huge amount of money, and I guess there's probably a lot of people in that position now because they've been closed down. Probably. What are some of the effective marketing strategies that you would always put in first? And just talk a little bit around that.
So if I were a struggling gym owner right now, first thing that I would do is I would get a cash flow injection. And so what I would do is probably pre-sell 5 to 10 people for a year forward, because then I could get probably $5,000 to $10,000 of cash up front. All right, with that money, I would probably go straight to paid ads. But if I didn't do that, then I would start with organic outreach. And so what you can do there is you can join your local groups of local bee cave moms and fitness fit moms or whatever, right? And you can friend request those people. message them, bring them to a phone call, and then see if you can get them into the facility. That's 100% free. It just takes effort. And so in terms of like knowing the metrics behind that, typically, if on social media, if you, let's say friend request 1,500 people, that's 50 people a day, which is usually the limit for most of the platforms. Otherwise, they'll think you're spamming. If you get 50 a day, you'll get about 700 of those people to accept your request, which is essentially just like them opting in, right? They've opted into communications with you. Mm-hmm. So you don't go to their outbox, it goes to their inbox. From there, if you were to message all of them, hey, I'm a gym owner in XYZ area, right across the street from you. Do you know anyone who might be interested in getting in shape? We're running some crazy promotions right now, right? So I'm not asking you, I'm asking if you know anybody. So all of a sudden, I'm not really spamming you, I'm just asking for help, which is a little bit different, right? So you ask them the first message. After that, you probably have 25% of people who will respond to that first message. So if you're at 700, let's say you're at 140 of those people, so 20% respond to that first message. So I'm going conservative. And then from that 140 who respond, you say, we get 30% of those people on the phone. So you get 42 people on the phone from the 140. And of the 42, you say you close 1 out of 3, right? And so you close whatever that is, 15 people, right? Or 14. And so from there, that kind of funnel would take a full month, right? That's a full month of work, probably about 1 to 2 hours a day of just responding to messages and whatnot. Now, if your price point's right and you're selling $2,500 packages, that's a lot of money, right? And so then you can take that money again, plus the paid in full stuff, and then do a real marketing campaign and do paid ads. That being said, doing the organic outbound method is something that you can always do, but it's a 4-letter word, which is work. A lot of people don't want to do that. And so the easy button is always paid ads. And the easy button, I'm saying that like somewhat tongue-in-cheek because it is easy if you know what you're doing, but most people don't. And so they're like, well, I ran a boost. I tried the Facebook and the Facebook didn't work. It's like saying I tried marketing and marketing doesn't work. Of course it does. You're just not good at it. And so, we want to have some sort of promotion that we're going to run. We want it to be attractive. We typically run almost exclusively free offers. And we do that because we split test free versus non-free. So something that doesn't have a free in the headline or anywhere on the copy or the page versus something that is free. We'll typically give about 4 times as many leads for a free offer compared to a non-free offer. And the close rate's the same. We've run this test 4 times. So with like 20 plus locations. So I feel fairly confident in saying free versus non-free, you get the same types of prospects. Right?
But you mentioned earlier about trying not to do free trials.
Right. So there's 11 different ways that you can make money off of free.
Okay.
So you can do free with commitment. You can do free, and then you're monetizing through supplements. You can do free, and free could be like you're putting a deposit down, and if you hit a goal, you get your money back. You can do free where you say, hey, the free thing that you signed up for is 1 time a week, but you really should do 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. And this is also going to come with a guarantee, and we'll do this extra group, and we'll meet up with you, and we're stacking the value. And then it's like, okay, well, I'll do that option, which is paid. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of structure the offer so that you can monetize the front end. You can do free, like pick your price, which is like you can do free, but if you do $99, we'll do this extra. If you do $299, we'll do this and this extra. If you do $499, but it's still pick your price. So from a compliance standpoint, someone can pick free. Mm-hmm. But that's where salesmanship comes into it, where you can add guarantees, you can add additional services to get them to upsell into something else. And so that's also one of the things that we have to typically break beliefs about with, a small business owner, is understanding how to advertise, right? And so if we're saying, if you go to, a lot of people have like a lot of limiting beliefs, but like if you go to get dinner and they ask you if you want dessert, it's not like, it's an upsell, right? If you go to rent a car, they're going to ask you if you want to fill the tank up. They're going to ask you if you want to upgrade your package. They're going to ask you if you want the minimum insurance package, which by the way, you don't need. It's called minimum because everyone just says yes. So they're all upsells. So it's this process that a lot of them don't have a choreographed sales process, so that you can take a prospect and know through a 3-step sale that we're going to make X amount on the first transaction for service. We're going to sell them supplements on the second day they come in for a nutrition orientation of some sort. And then usually at day 14, we'll try and pre-sell some sort of larger package. And 1 out of 5 will prepay that package, which will usually be a $2,000 to $3,000 sale. Mm-hmm. And so if I can get 1 out of 5 people to buy $3,000, then I add $600 to every one of the values of each of the other 5 sales. Mm-hmm. And so that's where like the metrics of understanding like the entire acquisition process end to end works. But most guys will just boost a post with something that says, hey, you should sign up at our gym. And then it goes to not even a landing page and says, text us at this number. So a lot of them don't have like, okay, well, how do I make ads? How do I make headlines? How do I make pages that are going to load quickly, and just conversion rate optimization, that kind of stuff. I won't get into that, but, but yeah. So if I were at ground zero, I would run a paid in full play, number one. Number two, I would do organic outreach and then sell high ticket packages selling to goal. And then number three, I would take that money and then I would run a big promotion where I would have a really sexy offer that people would want to sign up for. That is what I would do for an unbranded, undifferentiated, independent operator who's in fitness and weight loss.
And you obviously we talked about the brands like SoulCycle and Orange Theory that have got a brand, and if you're an independent, you don't have. How do you, and then relating that to the price point that you said, most people don't charge enough. So I guess if you are an independent and you're pricing yourself correctly, which is probably going to be more than everybody else in the area, how do you get that value where because it's kind of like, I guess it's a cold advert that comes in front of you with a high ticket. Is there things that you would do before that?
So the price wouldn't be on the page.
Oh,
the price is only brought up on the sale. So they wouldn't know about that. So most of the times you're selling in a vacuum, most of the time. Right, so people aren't shopping, it's an interruption-based ad, and so they're clicking and they're not really comparing it to anyone else. They saw the offer and they thought it was interesting and they opted in. And so you're not really going to be compared to anyone else. That being said, what we do to try and get our gyms to make more money is that we try and sell or bundle in high value or high profit margin services in addition to the workouts, right? And so for us, the biggest one is going to be accountability. And so if you think about why people are willing to pay more to go to the gym is because they actually want to use the gym. And so if you say, hey, what we'll do is for $49 a week, we'll text you every morning of your workouts to make sure you show up. We'll measure your weight. We'll make sure you're making progress. And then once a month, we'll check in on about your food or whatever. And so by doing that, we start stacking the value of the membership. And then no longer are we just a workout facility. We're actually more of a transformation facility. And by doing that, you provide more value. You have way more communication and relation and affinity with the client. And so because of that, they're going to be stickier. They're going to get more value and they'll be far more willing to pay the added premium. But the thing is that the extra effort that it takes to text someone can be automated. Yeah, all that stuff, we have software that automates all that. So really all the trainers or all the operator has to do is just respond when someone has a question based on those responses. So there's a lot of this, 80, 90% of this can be automated. By selling that added degree of value, going from $129 to $200 or $220 a month, almost all of that's margin. And that's where you can really drive the profitability of the facility.
I was going to ask you that then. So I was going to say, is this something that the trainers will do in terms of those follow-up calls and those texts?
Yeah.
Or have you got like a system that's got all that set up?
Yeah, so for the first 3 years, we had good old-fashioned Excel sheet systems and checking with this person at this day, and that's how we did it. But now we've got software that we've already programmed all that stuff into, and so all of the clients come into that automatically. They get set up with the programming that they need over the next however many weeks, and it's going to have all the reach outs, all the milestones built into it. So after your first workout, your third workout, your fifth workout, how was it? Hey, congratulations on your third workout. So you have milestones set in place. All that stuff now is automated, and it just makes it, we white label it so it's branded to the gym, and it just keeps everything in one place. And that way they can look at their trainers, they can see how their coaches are doing. You can assign it out so that each coach, let's say, has 40 clients. You got 5 coaches, so you have 200 clients, and you can monitor how the coaches are responding. You can see which of the coaches are retaining the best, all that kind of stuff.
So I guess a lot of those systems work really well, January, February this year. How has your business changed? And is what are a lot of these clubs doing that are not able to open or open on a very compromised way? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel for those?
Yeah, so right now the industry is really fragmented. I think we were talking before this about, at least from us, about 80% of our gyms are open to a degree. 20% actually shifted 100% online and are staying online. And so that's because so a year ago, I blasted the internet with something called hybrid, which was going to be a hybrid gym model where you have in-person clients and remote clients. And the reason behind that was because I believed that there was going to be a recession event that was going to come. So I feel kind of good about that, I guess. I thought there was going to be some sort of event that was coming. And I thought that we would need to have some sort of remote services so they could extend beyond the radius. And also because remote services are higher margin, right? If you're just paying a coach, let's say, $10 a week to sustain a client, that's $200 a month. Your total cost is $40. You're making, 80% gross margins on the service, which is better than most group training facilities do, which, by the way, is a benchmark for anyone who's listening, is you want to be at 80% gross margin for your services. I can tell them how to calculate that in a second if you want. But anyways, so since the industry is really fragmented, the guys who already had implemented the hybrid system already had 30, 40, 50 clients online at this point, plus their in-person clients. And so they already had all the systems built out to do that, and they just very seamlessly transitioned them to their existing protocols, right? The people who are reopened right now, if you were in a state that you can only see X amount of clients, then you really have to switch to semi-private, because you can't do group training prices with semi-private fulfillment, right? You can't have 5 people in a class and charge them $5 a session, because that's pretty much what it is. And so you can't do that.
A lot of people are doing stuff for free as well, I guess.
Well, yeah. Good luck. And so if they're going to reopen and they have a cap, then our recommendation is do semi-privates and have an online or remote component for the people who don't want to come back. If you are able to open up 100%, then run the GymLaunch model. And so we have a 2-tier model, which is large group, and then you can either, and this is an either have accountability and nutrition as your second layer, which you add on for another $200 a month, or you can have semi-private on top, which is 1-on-4 training, right? And so you can have either of those things. The price point's almost the same. It's easier to do accountability and nutrition as your second layer, because you don't have to deal with square footage, scheduling issues and all that, and people will pay pretty much the same for it. And the way that we position it is that this is one-on-one coaching for an extra $200 a month. And so even though you're training in a group, you're getting the one-on-one attention. And so that you have the same accountability as a personal trainer would give you, just you're not trading time for dollars. And so with that was the key to the entire GymLaunch model of why we're able to get more profitable, because we can get 30-40% of people at $400 a month, and the only added cost is $40 to the coach. And so that's where that's where the juice is really there. But back to what you were saying, if someone's 100% closed, then they have to learn how to sell online. Now, the program the software that we use to do the retention for in person also works online. Right. So it doesn't really matter whether a facility is 100% online, 100% in person, or 50-50. The outreach and communication is the same. So it actually simplifies a lot of stuff. And you would still assign clients or members to coaches the same way you would assign them to coaches if you had a purely online business. So it actually works the same way.
So with this online model, then how is that being delivered? Have you got a trainer with like Zoom and he's doing the same thing but in a camera, or what's
No, we don't do any Zoom stuff. We started Zoom stuff right off the bat because I wanted to just like put out fires. But all the guys who use our software now, there's 1,500 different exercises that are built into it that are not them, but they just program out what exercise they need to do. Okay. And so they can do that on their own schedule, which for many people is good because it's about the convenience. And the value that they're paying for is the accountability. They're paying for someone to pay attention, right? Because at the end of the day, like, you can go, if you want amazing live workouts, then Beachbody alone is going to beat you for $9 a month, right? They've been doing it for 20 years. They have the bandwidth, they have the models, and they have more types of sessions and times of day than you ever have. And so you're not going to beat them, right? And you're really not going to beat Peloton, right? Like they're already way ahead of you, right?
I saw yesterday.
You're not going to beat them, right? And so you have to beat them in a different way. And so the way that you can beat them is having the one accountability and service. And so that's why I always believe that there will always be room in any market for an exceptional operator and people who actually care about their customers. Right. And so what we try and do is put the systems in place to at least make it look like the owners that we have care.
So just to spend a moment on that experience then. So if I've signed up to you, I've got this virtual sort of work, transformation. Yeah. So what will I get? Something on my phone, my iPad, and will I just sort of stick it in front of me and I'll work out with some kettlebells, or what does that look like, the experience?
It'd be more similar to, it's not like a follow along. It's not like Taibo.
Okay.
It's more like, all right, we're doing 5 sets of lunges, okay, right? And then in each set you put your things in, and then it marks it as complete, and then you move to the next exercise. So most of the stuff is, and you can build rounds, you can build supersets, there's a million things you can do, but they're built in there so that they can do the thing, mark it, do the thing, mark it.
So the trainer then, from their side, they'll just kind of almost like have a library of exercises, mm-hmm, and they'll create the workouts, right, and they'll say to the 100 people that are signed up, right, you'll get the same workout, yep, and then tomorrow I'm going to create you a new one. Well,
the way we do it is we actually have 24 different programs based on someone's goal, and so we're going to have guys who want to get jacked, girls who want to lose weight, whatever. That they'll actually have different workouts, which is one of the added benefits, because then it's personalized. The workout's personalized, and so is the accountability. Right. If you have the one-to-many, that's where the Taibo and follow along. That's where you might as well do that for way cheaper. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be more personalized. And big picture, we're talking again. Susie, soccer mom, is just trying to feel good about herself, and so it's more important that there's variety in the exercises than really anything else, that she just doesn't get bored. Right. You don't need to worry about am I doing daily undulating periodization? Am I doing density training? Are we doing back to, she doesn't care. She just wants it to be fun and feel like she feels good about herself.
So and there's literally hundreds of apps, I guess, that are doing similar stuff. So are you saying then the bit that differentiates or makes this successful is the fact that the coach is going to be connecting with you? Have you done it? How are you getting on? That sort of stuff.
It's the accountability.
Really?
It's everything.
Right. Okay.
It's the relationship.
And how is that? You've obviously had a while to do this then, from a revenue perspective, which is a big number. You know, are people making money from doing that?
Yeah, totally.
Really?
I mean, what was interesting is that we had a lot of our 7-figure gyms abandon their in-person models altogether to go online because they were able to get leads for cheaper from a larger radius and sell them at the same price. As soon as they realized that, they were like, why do I have my gym? I don't need to do workouts. I don't need to pay this rent. They just flipped 100%, online. I would say this, is that when you're going online, there's a wider disparity between the haves and the have-nots.
What do you mean by that?
So when you're selling in person, essentially the two traits that it takes to be successful are pricing. If I had to just choose two, there's a million. But if I just had to choose two, it'd be having the right pricing model and then having sales ability. In person, so there's 3 fundamental things that you have to convince someone that someone's going to have to be convinced of in order to buy, right? They have to trust you, the salesman. They have to trust the company, and they have to trust that the product is going to solve their problem, right? When you're selling in person, they already inherently on some level trust you because you're literally in front of them, right? They already to a certain degree trust that the company is legit because they're inside of your building, right? And so you really just need to convince them that the service is going to provide the goal. And this person already drove their asses there. So they have a certain degree of like buy-in, and you just have to not mess it up. A lot of gym owners don't even realize how much the chips are stacked in their favor until they actually start selling in an anonymous environment online. Now, online, you have to convince them all 3 of those in the same period of time. And so it just takes more skill. And so that's where the difference between the have-nots. The guys who can sell, as soon as they figured out that they could sell online, will never go back. Because the profit is, the margin is phenomenally higher. The lead gen costs are phenomenally lower. All the metrics are in their favor. But you have to be good at sales. And so that's where we focus so much time and attention on making really creative offers, making really compelling things, trying to reverse risk to the highest degree possible. But again, it's trying to have free offers that have multiple upsells immediately, so we can liquidate the cost of acquisition. Selling supplements, selling add-ons, all that kind of stuff in the beginning, so that even somebody who's not as good at sales can still succeed. But there are definitely many people who do suck at sales, and they suck at sales even in person and even horrible online. And so that's why, as an industry, at least based on our rough estimates, about 35% of independent operators permanently closed during this time period, which is huge. And I think that's a shrinking of both demand and supply. So I think that there will be less demand for in person because some people will never want to come back, and they found Beachbody online for $10 a month and said, you know what, this is great, and I can do it from home, and I love it. And there's a certain amount of gym owners that went out of business because those people left, right? And so I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens afterwards, but I think that there is both sides of the equation. Just the entire market will shrink. I think it will grow, but I don't know if it'll ever go back to what it was pre-COVID, to be really candid with you.
Do you think though, like I suppose with everything that's going on, I certainly hear about it a lot in different markets, but there seems to be a general greater awareness of the importance of health and fitness for people who probably wouldn't go to a gym. Do you think that those people who probably wouldn't go to a gym but may be happy to do it in their apartment, do you think that's a new market that's probably likely to grow and provides more opportunity for this model?
For online only?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not for in-person.
Right.
No, I don't. Yeah, not for in-person, I don't think so. I also don't think it's going to be a huge piece because I think in-person is going to have a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of, the gym industry is going to have an uphill battle for the next, year or 2 years, and then we'll see where it stabilizes. But I think online definitely will have a lot of opportunities that exist, but there still will be plenty to take, because on the flip side, the people who do want to go to the gym really want to go to the gym. And so this is actually one of those opportunities where having an even higher price at this point where you have lower capacity actually makes sense, because you have you might have lower total number of demand, but the extent of the demand is higher. Does that make sense? So like I might only have 20 people who really want to come to the gym, but the elasticity of their price of what they're willing to pay is now significantly higher because they'll do anything to get out of their house. And so I think that that'll be an interesting, seeing how that shakes out. But yeah, I think that online's only going to grow. Online's the future. I think VR is going to really change a lot of stuff when virtual reality comes out and you can feel like you can get a group experience in the comfort of your home. I think that'll change a lot of things. So, the industry is new and exciting, but I think there's still, at least in the 5-year horizon, there will be room for gyms to come back. But I think the bottom 35% of operators got knocked out, and the people that when they come back will probably be able to grow back to where they were before, but it'll just take some time.
And with people working at home, what are your clients doing in terms of equipment? Are they keeping them sort of equipment free, body weight, or are they?
It depends on what the client has. So if the client is comfortable going to the gym, then we have workouts that have built in with barbells and dumbbells and machines. If they have access to a 24-hour gym, if they don't have access to one of those, then we have programs that are already built out that have body weight and stuff they can just do at home. So it really just depends on the client.
Yeah, and I guess you could, if you've got a facility, people could be working out at another facility then, and you could still be offering that service, could you?
Yeah.
If they went into a low-cost gym.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. Because I call it facility leasing or facility usage. That's now it's kind of getting a ticket to being able to get in shape. Most people have no idea, they have no accountability, they have no idea about nutrition, they don't even know what they're doing while they're there. And so the fact that they're paying $29 a month is really irrelevant to what their results are. So you absolutely can have, most online trainers tell their clients to go to a gym. So it's not combative at all, or cannibalizing.
And do you think that opportunity now exists outside of what's gone on with COVID? Do you think that opportunity exists for people to do this purely because a lot of the current businesses have just done a poor job at helping people to get the results and keeping them accountable?
Can you repeat the question? So
do you think, so it sounds like there's this opportunity for this kind of hybrid model of personal coaching and workouts. Outside of what COVID's prevented you from going for a gym, but do you think that opportunity is really there now because the majority of gyms have not done a good job at getting you results and holding you accountable?
I think the opportunity exists a lot because COVID pushed everyone 10 years into the future. And so, my mom downloaded Zoom and figured out how to do a video call. And there's all these, these are tiny, simple things, but if you look at the bell curve of technology adoption, you've got innovators, I can't remember the next one then, early adopters, late majority, and then laggards, right? And so it really took almost everyone besides the laggards and just pushed them all the way through doing video calls and Zoom calls like it was normal. And the idea of online training wasn't even, I don't believe that general population mass market even knew it existed. Like that, because we're in the industry, but I remember five years ago that people still really didn't know. If I went to talk to my mom about what's CrossFit, she'd have no idea. And it's been around for 10, 15 years, but still it takes a long time for information to go all the way down from the top of the market all the way down to the bottom. And so, yes, I do think that there's going to be a huge opportunity. I don't think it's because gyms did a bad job. I just think it's because now all of these clients are now aware of a solution set that they didn't know existed. And it's now more convenient for them. And for many of them, it's lower cost.
So as a business owner, you've been, and we've not covered this, but you have owned your own facilities. You've helped businesses to make money, and now you're moving into the online space. What's your thoughts if you were coming into this again and post COVID, and you had sort of all your savings and you were going to put it on the line? Where would you, what space would you, what would you do tomorrow?
So it depends on who I am and what my skill set is. The opportunity that I would be getting into would depend widely on that. And this is assuming that I wanted to be in fitness, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if I had what I would consider the average skill set, it's a hard call, because it's a really hard call. I think it's a really hard call. How much money do I have?
Okay, good. No. Let's say you got 50 grand.
50 grand. It'd be really difficult to open a facility and market it with that kind of money. So I probably would try and learn online if that's all I had. Running a facility can be extremely profitable if you're selling high ticket. And so that's where semi-privates is usually where the vast majority of the profit's being made, or adding in kind of that hybrid accountability. That's where the margin is. And so in some ways, group training can be considered I don't want to say freemium, but you're basically, for many people, they're almost breaking even on the service, give or take, right? And so it's making sure that they have these additional value ladders in place so that they can maximize profit. if I were somebody who had the passion of wanting to work with people, then I would have the brick and mortar facility that would be focused on ascending people up to semi-private and or like the one-on-one accountability and coaching. It also, the nice thing that opens up is it allows you to actually do more interesting programming, right? Because a lot of us don't just want to make group workouts. Like a lot of us train in different ways and would love to share that with people. And having that one-on-one accountability and coaching allows you to kind of flex those muscles that don't normally get flexed, which most of us enjoy. If I really didn't have a ton of capital, then starting online is probably the only place that would make sense, because you just don't, like, there's lower barrier to entry. That being said, there's more competition. And so you have to be willing to either have a superior skill set, which would be understanding the marketing side of paid acquisition, which takes time and money to understand, or having the work ethic to do outbound for 2 to 4 hours a day, every day, to build up my business. Those are, I mean, you have to either pay in time or you have to pay in money, but you have to pay to acquire customers. And it's just one or the other. And you just pick, I always joke that you can't be broke and busy. So it's either you have time and no money, or you have money and no time, but you can always trade one for the other. And so it's just making sure that the opportunity vehicle that they choose aligns with what they actually want to do in their life. A lot of our gym owners, for example, really love their gyms. And so, and obviously we have a very tested gym model that's very profitable. And so they want to run that. I ran into a lot of difficulty and pushback when I was like, guys, we have to go online for this period of time. And many of them did it basically just to get by. And then as soon as they could open back up, and they did fine. But it really depends on the personality of the individual. Some guys are like, I don't want anything to do with my gym anymore. I'm out. I'm going to travel the world. And some guys really love it. So it really depends on the person. Yeah.
And I guess there's a lot of trainers that probably work for facilities even like these. And they're like, okay, well, what do I do? And I suppose this sort of virtual model, if they can, as you say, if they can get the marketing right, they could potentially, deal with a lot of clients that maybe they couldn't do face to face, and start from there, I suppose.
If you have the skill set, being online in general will make you more money. The big if is if you have the skill set.
And is that from a marketing perspective when you say the skill set?
Marketing and sales.
Yeah.
Yep. Marketing and sales. Obviously you have to have a good strong back end, but a lot of that will even still be dictated on like the extent to which the person's convinced that you're going to be able to help them and the investment that they make. If you get someone to pay $5,000 or $3,000 for a weight loss program, they're far more likely to actually adhere than someone who pays $19,000. Right. And so it's my belief that in order to be a truly good and transformational coach, you have to develop the skill of helping people make decisions to help themselves. And that's sales. Right. And so I think the first step in coaching is being able to get people to prioritize that thing so that you can actually help them. If you can't get them to believe you or to believe that they are worth it, then you're not going to be a good coach. And so I think it's the first step.
Yeah. So a couple more questions before we wrap off. First one, fairly new news, but Apple coming into the fitness space, offering streaming service for about $10 a month. What's your thoughts on that?
I didn't even hear about it until you said it just
really?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they'll do amazingly well. Fitness is a growing space. They probably saw the opportunity that a lot of people are, which is probably saw Beachbody's growth during this period of time. I've got friends of mine who have, like online fitness apps, and most of them doubled or tripled just during COVID. To no, I don't want to say fault of their own, no extra work of their own. It was just circumstantial because all of those cancellations went somewhere, and that's where they flowed. And so Apple probably saw the opportunity and went for it. I think that they have a really good tech, stack. So the wearables all syncing together and all that stuff for the whole, digitized me or quantified self. I think that there's interest there, but even if everyone in America gets on the $10 a month app for Apple, most of them won't use it anyways. And I think there's always going to be room for somebody to actually provide high level of service and accountability.
Yeah, it sounds like from what I picked up from the conversation, it's that service, accountability, and just keeping people to achieve a goal. And I guess when you think about fitness, that's probably the one thing that all of us struggle the most with. Right. It's not the kettlebell program or whatever. It's staying.
Right. It's sticking with it. And if you think, I don't know if you had this experience, but most people that I know who are serious in fitness at one point had someone who invested a lot of time in them. And it's either a mentor, a friend, a brother, or they paid for it. But almost all of us had somebody who kind of showed us the ropes in the beginning. I certainly did for a year. I had a teacher who stayed out with me after school and worked out with me for 2 hours a day for the first year of my high school career. And so from that's what sparked my own interest, my own internal motivation to go learn and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know a lot of people who are 100% self-taught. Most people have other people to some degree that help them. And I think it's a necessary requisite for somebody who's going to make an actual true transformation in the long term. And so I think there's always going to be an opportunity for people who do care and are good operators, which is kind of like the very first question you asked in the beginning is like, why is there a difference between different facilities? And it really comes down to how good you are at operating the business and caring. And, we have a joke that, the best way to look like you give a shit about your customers is to actually just give a shit about your customers.
I never thought about that, but I started when I was 15. I used to like weight training and bodybuilding, and probably for the first 5 years, like in gyms, you used to have personal trainers, not where I lived, but you always had a training partner. Yeah. And you'd always meet 3 times, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that partner would be there, and you kind of evolve to another, but you'd always have someone with you. And it wasn't until I got older that, they started to drift away that I then struggled to make that leap from doing it myself to having somebody there. And I thought I was committed, but when you said that, it's like, well, actually, I had a lot of hand-holding for many, many years.
You had the personal connection that got you to the gym because you wanted to hang out with your friends and work out. Yeah. You didn't want to work out and hang out with your friends. So it's like, it's the dual motivation that gets people there. And a lot of people just don't have that in their community, or they're in their mind so far not fit. When you're 15 years old as a guy, you probably weren't like incredibly overweight, or you just wanted to look better, right? But if you're 60 pounds overweight and you're after your 3rd kid, you don't want anyone to see you. And so sometimes you do have to kind of pay for that person to be there and hold your hand during that process. And I think if you really want to help people, it's the single best way to do it. And if you do it in the context of a group training environment or online, the one-on-one touch is what allows you to get more margin, extend the lifetime value, and also actually deliver the product that you're saying you're going to. Yeah.
So where do you see in the next 24 months? What will the sort of traditional fitness space look like, do you think?
I think the entire market will shrink from a brick and mortar standpoint. I think that the operators who are left are probably, by definition, the top 2/3 of marketers. Either they had the capital not marketers, of gym owners, they had the capital to bear it, or they had the skills to bear it. But either way, that's how they got through it. I think that it will slowly come back, not to pre-COVID numbers. I don't know if it'll ever get back to what it was before COVID. It was also the best economic time of all times. And we're going to get back to probably some sort of slower recession, inflation, all that kind of stuff that's going to happen as an after effect. And so you're going to have some economic pressures. You also have all of these new businesses that are going to be siphoning away demand from the marketplace. So the overall marketplace for in-person, I think, will shrink. I think that online will continue to grow. I think the pace of the growth will not be as explosive as it was during COVID, because it'll kind of even out a little bit. But I think that what it did was it pushed the awareness of the entire population that there was an online solution. And I think that in the next maybe 3 to 5 years, that's where I think virtual reality will become really interesting, where people will be able to like work out in classes except not even have it. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for the gym owner, I think that they'll be able to come back after this, and the people who do want to come back to the gym will be even more dedicated than they ever have been.
So final question then. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you've believed is impossible and gone on to make it possible. What would be an example of where you've escaped your own personal limits?
I think GymLaunch in and of itself, the company, has escaped the limits that I thought was possible. I had life goals when I was younger to make X amount or save X amount, and we surpassed that, and then I put a new goal, and then we surpassed that, and then I put a new goal, and we surpassed that. And when I had my first gym and I was sleeping on the floor, I don't think I would have imagined that what I was learning at that point was going to become something that was going to impact thousands and thousands of gyms and their employees and their families and the hundreds of thousands of people who've gone through the facilities that we've helped. So that's very cool for me. So I think from an escaping the limits standpoint, that's probably the biggest one for me.
Fantastic. Well, look, thanks for your time. We'll put all the details of your company. If anybody's looking to take their business or struggling at the moment, it's you've got some great stuff out there. There's a lot of free content as well, which I'd recommend checking out your podcast. But we'll put the links in, and if anyone else wants to get in touch with you, then we'll make sure they can find out where you are. So, Alex, thank you so much. It's been a very interesting conversation, and best of luck in the future. Thank you. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast.
leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.